Super excited about today's guest. He's a great man. We only got to play with each other for a little bit, but he's someone I really looked up to because he's someone who actually I see a lot of myself in, and there weren't a lot of guys around that fit that bill. So, Adrian Del Monaco, welcome, mate.
Thanks very much.
Psychologist at Headspace by day and a footballer by
Mm-hmm.
night.
Mm-hmm.
They sometimes feel like they're completely two different worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is quite strange because often I drive from work to training, and it's quite different. I guess the first most obvious difference is that I work with mainly females, and I play football with males, obviously. So that's you know there's a lot of differences in that itself, and maybe there shouldn't be so many differences in that, but there are. So yeah, yeah, no, I definitely feel a different energy when I go to work compared to when I go to training. So yeah.
Yeah. So you work in a mental health space.
Mm-hmm.
What's been your experience with that topic at football? Obviously, statistically, there will be a lot of men at football who struggle with mental health issues, and then a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys who just have off days. What's been your experience with, I guess, the level of openness around that level of discussion?
Mm. So I guess different teams has probably been different levels, but overall, if we were to sort of compare, football to other environments like work or family, I think it's quite clear that it's less open. Um, I think that I think it's less open because of a couple of reasons. Probably because of the expectations on males, which is I know probably very well known, but also maybe. The understanding of ourselves, maybe. I don't know if as sports people and sports men in particular, that we're encouraged to sort of delve into understanding ourselves and understanding language that would actually be used to articulate internal experiences and thoughts and feelings and things like that. So I think part of it is sort of like the expectation and the pressure, and then part of it is the ability to articulate yourself or maybe just not being used to articulating yourself about that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely less open.
Yeah, I guess in my experience, the way you learn to behave in a certain environment is that you look up to the leaders and the people who set that culture. And I never really saw that too much from people, and certain teams I did, but I guess it's just you're a product of your environment, right? Like a lot of these guys
Mm.
would have the capacity to and probably have those conversations with their friends, but football seems to be this space where it's just off limits almost, that discussion, which is a bit sad because it's a place that we go to enjoy ourselves and be ourselves and express ourselves. Do you find that that's the case in your experience as well?
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point that you make. Obviously, so I'm probably one of the leaders in the team at the moment. So, part of what we could call like a, quasi leadership group. So I think it is a bit different because I sort of actually have the privilege of being able to promote that. But I think when I was younger, often I didn't really feel that way. Like often I didn't really feel that was sort of being promoted. And, I think it's different for everyone. Everyone has a different opinion, but that's probably something I noticed and thought to myself, oh, gee, I go to football to belong somewhere, and when you feel like you belong to a team and you've got good connections in the team, a client of mine actually said the other day something that I thought was articulated so well. He said, I don't feel lonely when I'm around people who know me. I feel connected when I'm around people who know me. And when he said that, he sort of meant like people who actually know who he is and the type, and maybe his, flaws and the things that he's really good at and his thoughts and feelings and, triggers and patterns and whatever. So like, that's when he felt most connected. He didn't feel more connected when he was around people physically. But yeah, I thought that was a really sort of nice way to put it. So yeah, no, I think you make a really good point about that. And that's probably been my experience as well. So yeah.
That's incredibly profound. And yeah, I think that I've certainly felt that in the past, but never really knew how to express that, or even I wasn't I guess, mature enough to understand that that was how I was feeling. Um,
Mm.
but in my private life, I've felt that a lot of the football lessons that I've learned have carried over. So a lot of them are really amazing and positive ones. You know, working in a team and leadership and all of the things that I really care about actually come from football. But I also inherited that bottling up of my emotions and not expressing myself to the people who care about me most, like my mum, for example, or partners. Um,
Mm.
you chat with young men often at work. What would be your advice for them most generally about not being able to express themselves? Because I'm sure a lot of footballers that might listen to this have never spoken to a psychologist before.
Mm. Um, so I think I would first sort of acknowledge and sort of just validate the position of difficulty to express yourself full stop. Um, as I said, expressing yourself is not just about, having the language, but it's also being conscious of what you actually need to express. Sometimes we just feel distressed. We feel that something's wrong, but we don't know what it is. We don't actually know how to articulate it. So learning about yourself is a really healthy way of building on expression. And you can see a therapist, or you can read, or you can write a journal, or you could do whatever it is that you want. There's many ways to do it. It's not only psychology, but that's probably the initial thing. I think that the second thing would be, and this is a really important message that I sort of promote, but also that I think about in my own life, is that your internal experiences are mainly out of your control. You don't really give consent before you have a thought, or before you have a feeling, or before you have an urge, or a memory pops up, or a judgment. All these things sort of pop up without our permission. But I think that we have a language, especially in sport, but in life in general, that goes against that idea. So you hear a lot of things like think more positively, or don't be upset about that. You shouldn't be upset about that. Things where we're sort of forcing internal experiences that are not the case. So I would encourage young men to sort of be more of an observer of their internal experiences. What kind of thoughts am I having? What kind of feelings am I having? To acknowledge them. If you're having the thought, I'm going to play really, really terribly today. I didn't sleep really well, whatever it is, and those thoughts are going on through your mind. I think you're much better off acknowledging them rather than trying to sort of block them out. So yeah, that'd probably be the second thing. And then the third thing would be, once you're able to acknowledge and be conscious of your internal experiences, I think it just allows you to sort of accept yourself a little bit more, and to love yourself a bit more, and then to tackle the difficulty that is in front of you, because the difficulty is now more clear, rather than, which I'm sure you've spoken about before, like this kind of thing that I think this automatic filter that we have, because it's apparently masculine to have this like filter of like, as soon as this unpleasant feeling comes in, it just automatically goes out. And we can't really talk about it on the spot, So yeah, I think they would be my sort of main points to send across, and also that everything that I just said, I experienced myself. I experience heaps of anxiety before games. Even still, I've played for 20 years and I still experience that. I remember, if I was ever dating a girl, I'd be talking on the phone to her, and then she would notice that my voice would change as I would walk into the change room, or I would speak differently to her as I'd walk into the change room, and I would say, "What are you talking about?" But she would notice there was a difference. So there must have been something different about being in the environment with the guys. So like, all these things I think are natural, and I think they occur, but building awareness and maybe not trying to over control our internal experiences, and maybe focus on our behavior, which I think is in our control. But yeah, so.
All of that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
I've certainly been guilty of pushing away my own emotions in the past, and only really through this project and having a lot of conversations with people have I come to just accept those negative emotions sometimes. And it's funny how when you do that, and I'm still working through that, and I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, but it's funny when you do that, how it can actually wash away once you just accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
So I think your advice is really important for men, but people in general to hear, because it's so real and it's so prevalent with everyone, and it doesn't discriminate.
Well, I think there's a bit of a misconception with, acknowledging or calling out your feelings is maybe not representing strength. But that doesn't really, I don't agree with that at all. Like, if you're going to have inevitable unpleasant feelings, and you're acknowledging them for the purpose of learning about yourself, but also for the purpose of building a tolerance to them, that for me represents strength. I think our strength often comes from our weaknesses, and when we think about the things that we don't tolerate well, like maybe if you don't tolerate anxiety well, most of the treatment for that, or whether it's in real life or whether it's in a therapeutic setting, is about learning about it and then exposing yourself to it gradually. And that's the same with lots of unpleasant feelings. And I think what we tend to forget is that, or what we tend to forget on, or maybe are not aware of, is that unpleasant feelings are really useful. They don't feel good, but they're useful. For example, anxiety protects us from harm, or, guilt. If we didn't feel guilt, we couldn't connect with people because we would have no remorse or ability to notice when we might be hurting them, So like, guilt doesn't feel nice, but it's also extremely useful. So I find that that's kind of the message I like to send young men, but also young women as well, to rebuilding a tolerance to feelings that are going to come, So
Absolutely. I think, Del, you're an awesome role model for a lot of people, and I'm really glad that this project in particular is able to showcase people like you, where the way you speak about it is just a really calm and open conversation. And I really think that your voice and other voices like it will encourage people to just feel more safe in their own minds, but also amongst friendship groups and hopefully at football clubs, because we both really care about football. It's a really important community to us. And I hope that by people listening to your words and listening to our conversation, that can have a really big impact.
Yeah, thanks, mate. No, I really appreciate that.
And thanks for coming on today. Like I said off the top, you're certainly someone that I look up to. I know we haven't shared the pitch together too much, but I knew from when I was 16, 17 that you were someone who that's a guy to model myself off. So thanks for being that for me and a lot of others, mate.
No, absolutely my pleasure, mate. And that's a big compliment. So no, I appreciate it.
Have a good one, Del. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.